Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Dream Mirror deck profile. So this is a really cool deck that actually just got some really good support in the Blazing Vortex pack, and got a really new cool boss monster in the form of Dream Mirror Tormentor, which is an insanely good boss monster, and is really cool because it can tag out in between its light and dark counterpart, which is a really neat aspect of the deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can become part of notifications squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below where we have all sorts of awesome rewards. You guys like getting your name screwed for every single video, getting a signed card to the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing two of the new Dream Mirror Disciple. Dream Mirror Disciple is a really neat card in this deck because basically what this card does is it has some really cool effects that if a Dream Mirror monster is on the field, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can make this card's attribute become dark. And if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror monster, activate the effect, activate this effect. If a Dream Mirror Joy is on the field, then you get to return a spell trap your opponent controls to the hand, and also, after that, if Dream Mirror of Terror is on the field, you get to draw a card and then shuffle one card from your hand into the deck as well, which is a really good effect. I've considered playing this card as a 3-of in the deck, but since it is a once per turn, I did only play it as a 2-of. It helps you get into some link plays as well and get you additional monsters on your side of the field and help you draw cards as well, because usually you're going to have Dream Mirror of Joy and Terror on your side of the field and your opponent's side of the field usually, because you can kind of throw them onto your opponent's side of the field so you can have both of them, which is super nice. We then play 3 copies of Icarus, the Dream Mirror Sprite. This card is really good too. It's one of your starter cards because if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror monster, you can add a Dream Mirror card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself, and then during the main or battle phase, the Dream Mirror Terror is in your field spell zone, then you can quick effect tribute this card and then special summon Icarus, the Dream Mirror Mara, from your deck, which is the dark version of it, which is really cool. So basically it depends on which one of the Dream Mirrors you have, depends on which one you tag out to. If you have the Terror, then you can tag your light ones out to the dark ones. If you have Joy, you can tag your dark ones out to the light ones, which is really cool. And a really interesting chaos deck aspect. So basically what this card does is if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror monster, you can special summon one Dream Mirror monster from your hand as well. And then during the main phase or battle phase, if Dream Mirror Joy is in your field spell zone, then you can quick effect tag this card out and special summon Icarus, the Dream Mirror Sprite, which is the light version, from your deck as well, which is a pretty good effect. We then play 1 copy of Morpheus, the Dream Mirror Black Knight, which is a really cool card as well. I actually picked the entire deck up because of these cards right here, because I loved the artwork of these. But basically what this card does is if this card is special summoned by the effect of Dream Mirror monster, you can target 1 card on the field and you instantly destroy it. And then during the main or battle phase, if a Dream Mirror of Joy is in your field spell zone, you can quick effect tribute this card and special summon 1 Morpheus, the Dream Mirror White Knight, from your deck, and you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. Then we play a single copy of Dream Mirror, the White Knight, Morpheus, Dream Mirror of White Knight, which is actually kind of cool because in Greek mythology, Morpheus is the god of dreams, which is kind of cool. We then play a single copy of this card, but basically what this card does is if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror monster, you can special summon this card. If this card is affected by the Dream Mirror, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. And then during the main phase, you can tag it out if you have Dream Mirror of Terror into the dark version, which is kind of cool. We then play 3 copies of Dream Mirror Foe, or 2 copies of Dream Mirror Foe. You just need 2. I really don't feel like I need any more than 2. It's kind of a neat card as a 2-of in this deck. I probably wouldn't play it at any more than 2. But basically what it does, if it's special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror card, this card can attack directly this turn, which is pretty cool. And if you have the Dream Mirror Joy, you can tag it out to the light version, which the light mirror is Dream Mirror Friend, which is kind of cool card too, because what this card does is if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dream Mirror monster, and you can target 1 level 8 or lower Dream Mirror in your graveyard, and you can special summon it in defense position, which is pretty cool to be able to tag it out and special summon back this card, or special summon back another one from your graveyard, which is kind of neat. I like that ability to tag him in and out, and it's a really good card overall, just to help you get into a lot of plays in the deck. We then play the real boss monster of the entire deck, and that is 3 copies of Chaos Daedalus. This card is insane in this deck, and you have to play this card at least 2 to 3. I played at 3. You can take one of them out for Chaos Creator or Blackluster Soldier, but I really recommend that you at least play 3 Chaos cards in this deck in the form of Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Chaos Daedalus, or your copies of Chaos Creator. You can play any mix of them in this 3 slots, but I like 3 copies of Chaos Daedalus because this card lets you banish a light and dark monster from your graveyard, and then while While a field spell is in your field spell zone, your opponent can target light or dark monster you control with card effects either, and you can target cards on the field up to the number of face-up field spells on the field and banish them. And you only use the effect of this card once per turn. This card is really, really, really good at just popping at least 2 cards, which is really good to be able to just pop cards on the field. And it's a 2600 beat stick as well that can instantly special summon itself to your side of the field by banishing a light or dark in the graveyard. Yes, please. I think I'll take 3, please. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is really good because you're going to be trying to get your copies of your field spells out of the deck as quickly as possible. You play 3 copies of Dream Mirror of Chaos. Dream Mirror of Chaos is a really neat card because it's basically the fusion spell that lets you fusion summon 1 Dream Mirror monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion material, which is a really good effect. And if a Dream Mirror of Joy is on the field, you can also use monsters from your hand as fusion material. And if a Dream Mirror of Terror is on your field, you can also banish monsters from your graveyard. So usually I like to have Terror on my side of the field to banish cards from the graveyard to get this effect off, because basically your Tormentor and your other the Urkling basically just require 2 monsters with different attributes, which is really easy to fulfill in this deck because you play so many lights and darks. We then play 3 copies of Dream Mirror of Joy. Dream Mirror of Joy is kind of neat because during the end phase, you can banish this card to activate 1 Dream Mirror of Terror directly from your hand or deck. And you only use the effect of this card once per turn. And then Dream Mirror's monsters you control can now be targeted by your opponent's card effects or their attacks, except your Dream Mirror monster with the highest attack. And this effect was only applied while you control a light Dream Mirror monster. We then play 3 copies of Dream Mirror of Terror. Dream Mirror of Terror is a really neat card. Like, I love the aspect of this deck that you basically have a light and a dark realm that you're basically swapping in between, which is kind of cool. It has the ability that during the end phase, you can manage it to activate Dream Mirror of Joy directly from your hand or deck. You only see the effect of this card once per turn, and each time your opponent special summons a monster, inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent, which is a pretty good effect. Just to be able to burn your opponent for 300 is really, really nice. I really wish, I've thought about bumping this card actually into my Red Eyes deck just to burn my opponent for an additional 300 every single time they special summon, and then every time they activate an effect then they get 500. I thought about doing that and working in a Flare Metal into this deck with your copy of your Chaos Daedalus. I thought that would be kind of weird, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, to figuring out exactly the consistency, because we need more level 7s in the deck to get that to work properly. But I thought that would be really mean to turn Dream Mirror into like a burn deck. We then play 3 copies of Dream Mirror Phantasms. This card is really cool too because it's basically the searcher of the deck. That when this card is activated, you get to add any Dream Mirror monster from your deck to your hand. And if a Dream Mirror of Joy is in your field spell zone, all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. And if Dream Mirror of Terror is in the field spell zone, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack, which is pretty good just to be able to give you that additional gain and loss against between you and your opponent's monsters, because some of your monsters are not that strong. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance to round out the spells, because Pot of Extravagance is really good in the deck because you don't really care about the extra deck all that much. You're basically just focused on your fusion summoning monsters or fusion monsters that you play, but you play each of them at 3, so you're usually not going to hit all 3 of them anyways, so it's totally fine. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Dream Mirror Counter Trap. This card is really, really good because it has the ability that when your opponent activates a spell or trap while you control Dream Mirror Joy in your field spell zone, then you can negate the activation if you destroy that card. And if you control Terror, if your opponent special summons the monsters while you control Terror, then you can negate the summon if you destroy that monster, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to negate spells and traps. It's basically Infernity Barrier, but you have to have a specific Dream Mirror card on your side of the field, which is really cool. And, you know, the art is very wholesome anyways, so, you know, why not? We then play a single copy of Dream Mirror Recap, which is kind of cool. Dream Mirror Recap is really cool for the lore of the deck because it's kind of like a dream. I understand that was very obvious, but it's really cool that they're actually like playing into that it's a dream, and they're like talking about it, which is kind of cool. So what this card does is if a Dream Mirror monster you control would be tributed to activate its own effect, you shuffle into the deck instead of sending it to the graveyard, and then during the main phase, you can send this card face-up card to the graveyard to place one of your Dreamier Joys or Dreamier Terrors that's banished or in the graveyard face-up in your spell and trap card zone, and you can special summon one monster for your hand that specifically lists this card in place of its text, which is pretty cool. Which is really a good effect just to be able to get you additional Dream Mirrors on your side of the field, and it's just an overall really good card as a one-of, and it's actually one of the newer cards. We then played 2 copies of Dream Mirror Fantasy. Dream Mirror Fantasy is just a 2-of to me, because if you control Dream Mirror monster, you can target one each of your banished Dream Mirror Joy and Terror, and then you get to shuffle them into the deck, and you get to banish one card on the field, and if Dream Mirror cards you control would be destroyed by a battle or by card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, which is a really good effect just overall, but I feel like it's a 2-of in the deck. I probably wouldn't play it any more than 2 anymore. Then we played 3 copies of Dream Mirror Hypnagogia. Hypnagogia is really good and one of the cards you actually want to see as quickly as possible. I thought about even throwing in Trap Tricks back into the deck, but I feel like the deck is already good enough without it that you don't really need it. But basically what this card does is you get to choose a Dream Mirror of Joy and Dream Mirror of Terror from your hand or deck, and you place them on the field on your opponent's and your side of the field, so you get to pick if you give your opponent the Joy or the Terror. It totally depends, and you get Joy or Terror. It depends on which one you want to give your opponent depending on what monsters you have. This card's an overall really good card in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Dreamer Tormentor, which is basically the new big boss monster from the new Blazing Vortex pack. But basically what this card does is, while face up on the field, this card becomes a light attribute. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. When a monster effect is activated while you control Dreamer or Terror in your field spell zone, you can negate the effect, which is a pretty cool effect just to have you an Omni Negate in the deck. Really good card overall. And if a Dreamer or Joy is in your field spell zone, you can tribute this card to special summon one of your Urklings from your extra deck and defense position, so it lets you tag it out to special summon out your Dreamier Urkling, which is a really cool card overall. It almost looks like Force of Will artwork to me, but basically what this card does is, while face up on the field, it also becomes dark, and you only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn, and if another monster you control is treated except during the damage step, then you can target one card on the field and destroy it, and if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon one Dreamier monster from your graveyard except another copy of itself, which is a really good effect just to be able to get you additional monsters. Usually you want to start with this one and go to this one, but it kind of depends on where you go with the deck. So for the other cards we're playing in the deck, I'm playing a single copy of Access Code. You don't have to play it. You can play double Boral Sword, which I played Boral Sword as well. The reason I play it is because you have a lot of cards in the extra deck that help you get a lot of pops with different attributes. So this card is really good to help out, but you don't have to play it if you don't want to. It's not necessary for the deck to have to play this card. So you can change it out for Boral Sword. You can change it out for Appaloosa. It's totally up to you. You play double Unicorn. Unicorn is really cool because it gives you spins on the field. You play double Phoenix because it's going to help you give additional spell and traps pops, and I play a single copy of Cross Sheep because you play so many fusions, but it's not, again, necessary for the entire deck to work, so I kind of just play it as a one-of. You can drop Access Code for a second copy of Cross Sheep. It's totally up to you since it's an extravagance build. It's kind of what you prioritize. One copy of Link Rebo and a single copy of Relinquished Anima. The reason I play these at 1 each instead of playing 2 and 2 is because I kind of not worried about it. I always just want to have one because of the, just in case my opponent negates the effect of my Sprite or Mara, I want to be able to link into one of these to be able to either stop attacks or gobble up a monster, but I don't have to have necessarily both. So if you only have Link Rebos, play Link Rebos. If you only have Relinquished Anima, play 2 of Relinquished Anima. It's totally up to you. So that's it for the deck, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell us what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, because it's a really cool deck overall. And I highly recommend, if you guys have not played this deck, you definitely should, because it's super fun. Like, it's really weird, it's really cool, and your opponent's never gonna, like, know what's coming, because it's just really weird. Like, unless they played against this deck, they're not gonna know how to play against it. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.